All right. So, some real shit. Like, I just got back from riding my fucking bicycle and shit, my Mustang and shit, and fucking just pretty much the last video that I posted on this particular channel and shit like that. Fucking in terms of like if you ever seen me ride my bicycles and shit like that, for you ever seen me like ride it, and pretty much in they these watches or whoever's doing that, they make you stop at the same lights and shit like that. They fuck with the lights and shit like that, and it's clearly visible and shit like that. There's a lot of motherfuckers I've seen that shit. If you see me ride my bike, they always make you stop at the same uh, fucking uh, stop and shit like that because of the lights and shit like that. And then obviously, you know, fucking like, but it's done purposely and shit like that. Especially when you know that the lights are being fucked with and shit like that. You know, you go into these motherfuckers fucking with the lights, so you go and shit like that. But it's done purposely so that let's say you do, you know, um, you go for it and shit like that, knowing that most likely a cop that's gonna be around and shit like that, supposedly to stop you because supposedly it's your fault and shit like that, but it's not your fault. You know, they just make it seem that way and shit like that. And that's a thing. A lot of shit, like for example, there was a supposedly some dude, right? This is not too long ago, to my understanding and shit like that, where he was doing some weird ass shit and shit like that, had a bat or some shit like that, saying that cops weren't cops, and what he was saying or whoever that person was is true and shit like that. And supposedly, uh, one of the cops and shot him and shit like that. And the thing that's funny is that you know they actually showed the age of the cop and shit like that, a 21-year-old cop or some shit like that. And again, a 21-year-old cop, that's young, That's like I stated, me just jabbering and shit like that. 21-year-olds or younger and shit like that technically should not be cops. They should be 35 to 40-year-olds and shit like that because they have experience and more shit. Not somebody that's barely legal to drink. It's funny. I'm not trying to put them down if they're genuine motherfuckers and shit like that, but that that's a very young age to be a cop, upholding the law that should be followed and shit. Um, but uh, that that story and shit like that, or whatever occurred and shit like that, technically, I mean, the guy did have a bat, and I'm quite certain there was two cops there and shit like that. And to my understanding, they also used like a taser gun or some shit like that, and supposedly it didn't work on that motherfucker. All right. Now, me thinking it was like, again, if you're an actual fucking cop and shit like that, and they're not using an actual deadly weapon, like it's not like they had a gun and shit like that or a knife that could potentially kill you. Also, a bat can kill you, but you could say there's ways around that and shit like that. If there's two cops, one of them's gonna get hurt, but if you both go in and tackle that motherfucker and shit like that, nobody dies and shit like that. And that's part of being in law enforcement, a cop, knowing when, you know, to do that type of shit. That's actually being a cop and shit like that. If you supposedly are, you know, doing the job properly and shit like that, it makes a lot of sense and shit like that, you know. Uh, because if it's two, both of them can rush in and tackle the son of a bitch and shit like that, and that motherfucker wouldn't have been dead. It's true. You know what I'm saying? You might have gotten hurt and shit like that, but if both do it, trust me, as somebody that's into that type of defense and shit like that, they'll tell you, yeah, like I don't want to get into it. I don't want to digress into that type of shit, but it's true. You know, multiple cops just rush in and shit like that. One of them's bound to get hurt, but not the other, and that's real ass shit. Somebody logicality thinking would be like, actually, yeah, that is that is true. But now me thinking shit like that. What else? But it's true. Like some cops that are out are not genuinely cops and shit like that. Just like while riding my bike, I stopped right there on Bruce and Stewart. Just right there chilling and shit. And me seeing that the lights all of a sudden now start working properly and shit like that because obviously it's done purposely. And then you got while me getting done with my little fucking bullshit ass break and shit like that, eating fucking some food, rolling down and shit like that, going back up north on Bruce and shit like that. Sure enough, you know, there's a cop that rolled by, made a loud ass fucking sound and shit like that, doing that whole skeleton key nonsense and shit like that. You know, it's like some cops are not cops and shit like that. And there's video. There should be fucking videos, and unless there's no fucking cameras, they could easily narrow it down like who the fuck was that shit. But obviously they don't do that kind of shit because a lot of them are not who they say they are and shit like that. So you know that particular person that did get killed by a young cop and shit like that technically was saying the truth and shit like that. For whatever it is he was doing and shit like that. You know, I don't know if he was doing the right thing or not. I have no clue. But young cops should not be enforced. Let's just put it that way. It's true. Um, what else I want to say? Again, this is just in the spot shit. Top of my head. Um, what else? Um, I guess. Um, I guess I was just thinking something else. But that's it.